Hello.
I was having all kind of challenges getting on.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was supposed to be 1 o'clock and I had.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, we just had a storm here, so I think we were having some problems, trying to connect up to everything. So, how's everybody doing?
Good.
We're good.
Okay. Everybody weathered the storm okay?
It's still raining where I am.
Oh, is it?
We haven't gotten it yet, so
Oh, okay. Well,
hopefully we'll be spared.
yeah. It was a doozy. It definitely was kind of little windy and trees waving around out here. So it was interesting, to say the least. So anyway, here we are. So wow, okay. All of a sudden we got a lot of people here. So let's start by sharing some of the things that you guys have sent in. And Betty?
Carl,
Yes?
before you start, I was going to say something last time, but you know that I am more of a traditionalist and a realist.
Yeah.
And so I have problems just taking lines and making things happen.
Okay.
And being very creative. I'm not extremely creative. It looked like something that one of the grands could have done at the age of 2 or 3, or an elephant's footprint or something. So I'm struggling to work with that to make something out of this, trying to get some creativity going. But the creativity is stuck in traditional and realism, So just want to let you know that. So if you have some ideas later on, maybe someone else is suffering from that also, let me know. I've tried to maybe be a bit more creative by putting some more colorful clothes on, or some creative earrings, or something that will start with me and move beyond that,
I see.
Me too, Claudia. Me too.
Okay.
You are too? Yeah, okay.
Yes. I'm not that creative. I have to see something.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but you're both wrong. You are both creative. And I think I have kind of an answer to Claudia's question, okay? And we're actually going to kind of start, well, let's see if I can find it here now. Because I thought I opened it up. Maybe I didn't. Let's see.
That's what you sent us?
No. Because Betty sent in, that's why. Okay. Okay, I didn't want to do, okay, let's see. I guess I'm not ready for you guys quite yet. Save it as a JPEG. Probably work better if you guys want to see it. Because Betty sent in a drawing, and what she did is she took that gardenia and she played with it, okay? And then what I did is I took her drawing and I played with it. So let's see. Oh, okay. Well, let's see what. Okay. Yeah. Well, so much for that idea at this point in time. I will show it to you though. Okay. And mainly, the idea here is take anything, and again, it's a source of inspiration. Some people have an easier time, just copying something, right? And then once they kind of copy it, then they can kind of modify it, play with it a little bit, try to make it their own. But
that's what I do. I
Yeah.
copied 2 or 3 different pictures and put them together.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And let me just say that, to try to come up with something that is original, okay, is really not all that easy. Okay, it's really not. So, don't feel intimidated or bad by the fact that maybe you find it a little difficult to do something like that. So now that I've got it here on the screen, let me share it with you. There we go. Now, I haven't gone very far with it, but
Oh, okay.
see, Betty sent in, basically a pencil drawing, okay? And then what I did,
Good.
I put it in Photoshop and I just started layering some colors over it, okay? And I cropped it a little differently. She had it where you could see all the way around it, kind of like the original reference was. And what I did is I cropped in on it, okay? And so that's the thing, you take something and you begin to play with it. You begin to manipulate it. You just because it's all there doesn't mean you have to use everything, right? You can distort things, make some things more prominent, other things less prominent. So again, and this is like maybe 5-10 minutes of just playing with it in Photoshop, right? But you can do all kinds of things with it. But you can tell that what she had started with originally was, a drawing of that chameleon, right? So let's go back to that. And I'll show you the original drawing she sent me. Okay. What are you guys seeing right now?
The
The
lady
girl
with the earring and.
Oh,
and
okay. Good. Good.
the
Okay.
earring.
Good. So we got to the right thing. All right. That's what we wanted. Let's see, Betty, where are you? Somewhere up in here.
Oh, I think you came down too far. There it is.
Yeah.
Oh, very nice.
Okay.
Okay. So this is what she sent me.
Very nice.
And then, like I said, I just added color to it. I cropped it a little differently. Now, the thing that she has done here that I like is she's gotten a lot of the movement, with the curves of like the branches and the leaves and things like that. And she's taken that and brought it into, that shape of the pot that it was sitting in. And, it's gotten to the point now where you can't really tell it's a pot, it's more of a pattern or a design. And you could, now that you've got that, you can take that and you can break it up into any sort of color, arrangement that you want. So this is kind of like the first step, and then you take it and see what you can do with it. Maybe you don't need the whole thing. Again, maybe you crop in on just a small area of it, or maybe you, in the final, you crop it in such a way so that it's, less centered. Okay, you add some to the left, the right, top, somewhere. Again, to play with the composition. And it's like take each one of those, basic tools that you have, such as, composition and, value, color, intensity, and play with them, manipulate them, along the way. And you don't have to solve them all at once. Okay. Again, this is sort of an exploratory process, and you go through it, you keep playing with it. And it may not end up looking anything like a gardenia, and it doesn't matter that it doesn't look like a gardenia. It's more about, going through the process of, exploring and seeing what you can kind of create, on your own. If you want to keep it still about a vase of flowers, you can do that. You can go as far, or stay as close and representational as you want. Did that kind of answer your question, Claudia and Eloise?
Yes. The
Kinda?
closest I've come
Yes.
though to making changes, well, the closest, yeah, yeah, the closest I've come to making changes was in a Photoshop class, and I made my gorillas, my brown gorillas, one pink and one purple, you know, and I put it in the evening to remember, evening of the festival, whatever.
Oh,
But
even
yes,
the art?
yeah, evening of the arts. You know, I did from the photo class,
Mhm.
and I took some of the animals that I took out at the zoo when our class went to the zoo, and I turned them different colors, and so that wasn't cute. But
Now,
that's as far as I've come to be creative like that.
right. Now, the thing is, okay, if you got something like Photoshop or some kind of photo manipulation program that you can, do it digitally and do a lot of different versions and stuff like that, that's great. But guess what? You don't have to have Photoshop. All you need is a sketch pad, maybe a little bit of watercolor or acrylic, and a pencil or a pen, and you just do a series of thumbnails. And again, you play with the color arrangements, things like that, the value, but you're doing these little thumbnails all about the same size and the same design. And then you're, working from there. And, as you work along, you might make some changes, to them. And once you find something that you really like as far as color, composition, the pattern, or, the change in contrast and value, then you take that and maybe do it a little bit larger, and try to refine it. And then take that, and once you get really comfortable with the idea and you have a direction that you want to go in, then you do a final piece. Okay.
But you should start with an original that's realism or traditional art, and move from there.
You don't have to. You don't have to. I mean, again, it's like if you went to class on Friday, to a figure drawing class, and you had this model and she took a pose and you did just a couple of gestural lines, you could take that and then develop it into a piece of art. It doesn't have to be a figure, but the original source was her figure or his figure and the movement that they were making, right?
Okay, I got you.
I mean, you could do the same thing with something totally abstract, like a piece of music, right? If you took your favorite piece of music and you listened to it, and let's say you listened to it, 5 or 10 times, and, you just kind of thought about it, and you kind of thought about, okay, so what is the music doing? How is it moving? Is it one of these pieces of music that's very calm and kind of steady, or are there places where it moves, up in tempo and down in tempo? And then how would I tell somebody that by the use of like lines, shapes, colors, changes in value, to describe this piece of music, right?
Oh, okay.
So
Well,
little exercises like that, thinking, trying to get outside of the box, and not necessarily having to attach it to, I'm drawing somebody's face. I mean, representational art is fine, okay? And there's nothing wrong with doing representational art. But doing things like this in addition to, trying to work on your drawing skills and things like that, open up doors so that you can be more playful and creative, in the process of maybe doing something that's more representational. Okay.
is it like rearranging a classical or or just some music that's well-known music, and rearrange it into your own style, but still keeping the basic part of the music, but it sounds different and it flows different?
Well,
You know
yeah,
how artists do?
musicians do that all the time.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. You know, I mean, if you take a piece of classical music, like a piece by Beethoven or something,
Mhm.
you know, how many times have those been reworked and rearranged and redone so that, you know, you still know it's that classical piece of music, but there's things that the individual composer or the individual artist added to it, right? To make it more
Yes. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, same thing with a painter. Okay. I think last week, who were we looking at? Oh, it
The
wasn't
lady with the
Tanner.
earring.
It wasn't Tanner. It was Hale, Chuck Hale. Um, and how, you know, the painting that he did, Europa, right? And how Europa related to Picasso's Guernica. See, you know, same basic elements, you know, in the composition, but they did very different things with them, right? So, you know, I mean, artists are always kind of borrowing, and in fact, we could talk about that. Um, you know, one of the things that you have to do really well if you're going to be a professional artist is you got to be able to steal. Okay. And that now stealing is different than copying. Okay. See, stealing is you see something and it's like, wow, okay, that's a great idea. Okay. Or I like the way they did this, right? And then you don't, you know, you don't take it and try to just copy what they did. You take that and you keep it in the back of your mind. And it's like, oh, okay. You know, maybe I want to play with, you know, maybe the sky isn't blue. Maybe the sky is more green, right? Or maybe I like the way they did these trees and I like the contrast of them and how they sort of simplified and abstracted them, right? And so you borrow these things and you incorporate it into your own work, your own compositions, things like that. You know, the same is true for anybody that you study art with. You know, if you've studied art with more than one teacher, right? It's like each person that you study with over time, you pick up little things, right? And it's not that you're doing what they did. It's like you've incorporated into your process, right? And in the fact that it's become part of your process, it becomes your own. Say it's the way you approach things, and it has an effect on the outcome of your final piece of artwork. Okay. So you know, artists get things from lots of different sources. You know, instructors, other artists, you know, things that they see. Very seldom does anybody sit down and come up with anything that's like never been done before. Because believe me, you know, working with a set of traditional media, such as, you know, paint and palette knives and brushes and things like that, at some point, somebody's done it. Okay. You're not going to do anything that's totally new, right? But what you can do is you can take it and make it, you know, applicable to the time and the place that you live and make it relevant in the sense that it represents or reflects, you know, your experience, you know, at the time that you lived. So did
Thank you.
did that kind of go in the direction?
Yes, you did. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Anyway, so so now that we're on this, so I'm going to show a few pieces. This was the girl with the pearl earring, and Avatal sent that in, and so she's been working on that. And I think I had seen it once before. And Avatal, are you here? I don't know. I can't see everybody. I know we got about 18 people online now. Okay. Nope. All right. Yeah, I don't see Avatar. Anyway, she sent this in, and she also sent in this piece, And again, this looks like a pastel, and it looks like it's on like a piece of drawing paper, like a piece of Canson paper. But I'd like her to be here to talk about it a little bit. All right. And then we have Eleanor sent in this piece, and I know she's here. I saw
Eloise.
Or Eloise, I'm sorry. Eloise, tell us a little bit about your piece. I know it's Stone Mountain.
It's just an acrylic painting of Stone Mountain. I went up there and took the picture, and I came home and worked on it.
Okay.
So,
Is this something that you did recently?
no, I did it about 6 years ago. And I wanted to ask you, does acrylic paint fade or something? The colors don't seem to be the same.
Well, yeah, as acrylic dries, and it happens very quickly, so it doesn't change a lot over time. But what will happen is, as it dries, it will get a little bit darker and a little less intense. Okay, it grays just a little bit. But that usually happens, within 2 or 3 days of the time you painted it. It doesn't, these days it doesn't shift a lot, but it does definitely shift as it dries. Now, if you're experiencing that, what I would say is take a look. Is it on canvas?
Yes, it's on canvas, but it's also student grade paint, so that might have something to do with it too.
It might, though I would say, you might just take like a damp, I wouldn't take a paper towel, but I would take like a cloth that doesn't give off a lot of lint, and I would, very gently just get it damp, and then just wipe the painting down gently. Don't scrub at it, because I don't want you taking any paint off of it. But, you may have built up, some kind of film or something on it over time, and you just need to clean it off. So.
Because I edited this to make it a little lighter than it actually is now, because it looked like it had turned darker.
Yeah. Well, now, turning darker, again, is something that acrylic just does. But it will do it within the first couple of days. Once it's like dry, it shouldn't really change after that. Did you varnish it in any way?
Yes,
Okay.
I did.
What kind of varnish did you put on it? Do you know?
I can't remember. It was a spray varnish at the time. I don't use sprays.
Okay. Well, because I'm kind of thinking, depending on the type of varnish you put on it, the varnish might be discoloring, and that may be changing the color of it.
Right, I had not thought of that. Thank you.
Yeah, as the varnish ages too. And you got to be careful with that, because, for oil paintings, varnish is a good thing, right? You want to put on a couple of good coats of varnish. And usually, I've used some of the, it's the Winsor Newton satin spray varnish. And I like that, it works really well. Before that, I was using a liquid varnish from a company called Sennelier. And I really love their varnishes, but it's one of those that you brush on. And it's kind of a tedious process, because you got to put a layer on, let it set up and dry, come back a day or two later, go back across the painting a different direction, again, let that layer dry. So it takes you sometimes about a week to 2 weeks to get a piece really varnished, particularly if it's of any size whatsoever. It's kind of a long, tedious process to use the liquid varnish and then brush it on. The spray varnish is really much quicker. And again, I use the Winsor Newton, but it's made, to go over. It says that it's for oils and acrylics, but I just really use it on oil paintings.
About how many coats do you need to put on there?
I usually
when you do the spray?
I usually put about at minimum 3.
3 coats, okay.
Yeah, but you know, I keep putting coats of varnish on it until I get the varnish, you know, really even and consistent. Okay. And so, you know, sometimes I'll put 5 or 6 layers of varnish on it, you know, until it really has a nice even finish all over the painting.
Now, do you have to lay that down flat also, or can you spray it when it's hanging up?
No, you have to lay it down.
Okay.
If you try to spray it while it's vertical on the wall, you know, you're going to have big drip marks, you know.
Okay.
You know, unless you put on that varnish very, very lightly, but I usually put on fairly heavy coats of varnish, and then I'll let it sit and totally dry, and then I'll come back and I'll work the other direction. Even with the spray can, you don't want to keep moving the same direction. You want to take it and turn it.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like every time you go over it, you want to go over it, you know, at a different angle in a different direction. That way you get, again, it just helps even out, you know, the final surface on it.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's a whole art to, you know, putting on varnish on a painting, you know, and it takes a while. And my suggestion is, if you've got a couple of pieces of, you know, that you want to varnish, and
Yes.
you haven't done it before, or you know, you don't feel really comfortable with it, then start off with, you know, some smaller studies and things like that, and varnish those, and you know, see how it works out, you know, until you begin to get more comfortable with it, and you know, kind of figure out a technique, you know, that you can use to get a good result with it. You know, once you pretty consistently can get a good result with it, then go and varnish, you know, that final piece of art that you wanted to do.
And you need to take that outside also.
Pardon?
You need to take that outside also. Do it outside.
You could do it in a covered area, like an open garage, or you know,
Okay.
a porch or something like that. That would be
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
The problem with taking it out, you know, like outside,
Yes.
is you know, there are critters out there flying around, and varnish,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
the smell of it tends to attract things like gnats and bees and stuff
Uh-huh.
like that, and they like to land in it.
And then we stick to it.
And then they become
Yeah.
a permanent part of your painting, and you know, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, there's a little bug in there. So yeah, I usually do it, you know, in like a covered area, like a garage, or I've got a back porch out here that is screened in, so I can keep most of the critters out of it, which is good. So, okay.
Okay.
But
If you want to make,
All right. Thank you.
pardon?
this is Beverly, if you want to make copies of your work,
Mm-hmm.
can you do it with the varnishes on it, or should you do it before you varnish?
I would always photograph it before I put a varnish on it.
Okay.
Because as soon as you put a varnish, even if it's like a satin varnish, and satins are better, you know, than like really high gloss varnishes, because you don't get all the little hot spots that you do, you know, with a gloss varnish. But I usually try to photograph things before I varnish them, and that way I don't have to, you know, deal with the glare, you know, of the light, you know, on the surface. And if your painting is not perfect, and very few of them ever are, right? And you know, they're not perfectly flat and smooth, and you've got some brush strokes or something in there, and you put a gloss varnish on there, what's going to happen is, as the light hits that, you're going to see every one of those little raised areas, you know, as a highlight. And so, you know, trying to photograph it before you get the varnish on it, it's a good idea. You know,
Okay.
that's the only way you're really going to get it, you know, where it's flat and the color is even without any like glare spots or anything on it. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anyway, Eloise, back to your painting. I know we went off in many different directions there, but you know, it's a nice painting, and a lot of the things we've been talking about lately, you know, as far as controlling your contrast, color, things like that, all are working pretty well in this painting. You know, you've got, your color is more intense. Oh my God. You know, we're running out of time already. Who knew? I need to start moving faster. Anyway, your color is, you know, more intense in the foreground, and you've grayed it back as it moves back toward the mountain. So, you know, I mean, I think you've handled this really well. Okay. So,
Now that I know a few things about composition, I know not to put the mountain in the center. I know to
well, it's
make the
not.
horizon in thirds.
Yeah, well, it's not exactly in the center. It's slightly off to the left, which is good. Okay. Yeah, because the center point is really about right here. Okay. So it's kind of encroaching into the center, but most of it is off to the upper left. And so I wouldn't really consider that, you know, right in the middle of the painting. If you had moved it over, like, you know, where the peak was like right here, so the mass of the mountain was right in the middle, you know, then I'd be talking about it. But no, it's, I like the composition of it, and the road running, you know, back to the mountain, and then you kind of go up the side of the mountain and then down the ridge and then back around again. So, you know, the composition of it, you know, flows pretty nicely. And, you know, it's a nice little piece. So how big did you do this?
It's a 16 by 20.
1620. Okay. Yeah.
That's
So,
a nice size. It's nice.
Yeah. So kind of a medium size. And you said it's in acrylic?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to compliment you. The way you handled your clouds was really nice. You
It was
know?
a nice picture.
Yeah. I mean, they feel like clouds. They're soft. They're brighter than anything in the landscape, you know? So, I mean, you got a really nice sense of atmosphere in there, and it's working pretty well.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is a drawing by Jean, and this was one of the camellias. And so she did a drawing, and then she started, I guess, this is like a pen, and again, watercolor. Are you here, Jean? Okay. Well, no. Let's see. This is by Linda.
Okay.
Linda Lynn. So yeah, she kind of, you know, from the video of the girl, you know, she kind of took this and you know, did her own thing with it. It's kind of fun, you know.
It is.
Yeah. And so you could take this, and again, you know, if you wanted to add the element of color to it, you could really play with it, and you know, take it a lot of different directions. So we have Naomi, and she did a drawing of actually she did a couple things. She did this drawing of a face. And Naomi, I have to ask you a question. You here?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Okay, so is it that you photographed the drawing at kind of an angle so it looks distorted, or is the drawing actually distorted?
The drawing is distorted.
Ah, okay. And was that an intentional thing?
No.
Ah, okay.
What is it? The nose should be moved over? Is that it?
It just seems like the whole thing, you know, like the angle of the, you know, now the eyes, the nose, and the mouth all seem to be moving, you know, the same, at the same angle, right? But somehow it's like, you know, the head still feels kind of flat. Okay. It doesn't seem to like go to the cheekbone and then move backward for some reason.
Oh,
You know, it seems like it's pretty flat all the way across, where it
Oh.
should, you know, maybe this should be kind of a flatter plane, the front plane of the face, and then it should get to here, and then it should move backward. And so, are you open to an experiment on this?
yeah.
Okay, so here's what I want you to do. Really, from right here at the peak of the eyebrow,
Uh-huh.
you know, back along this. Can you see where the cursor is moving?
Yes.
Okay. You know, from there over, just take your pencil and, you know, put a tone on everything to the left of that, okay? And darken this whole side of her face down. you know, even the reflected light, you know, again, you know, take it down just a little bit, all right? So it's not nearly as white as you got it right now. And see if that doesn't help, you know, move that side of the face back, okay?
Mhm.
So try that, and then photograph it and send it to us again, okay? And then you did this piece. So tell us a little bit about that.
That's a woman's body.
Okay. I kind of see a figure, you know, the red right here seems like a standing figure right here.
Right.
Uh,
It's a body
Okay. All right.
with
And
my cheap pencils.
yeah, and that's fine. You know, you could take this and obviously translate it in watercolor or paint or something else.
Yeah.
You know, again, you know, this is it's kind of a process that you can kind of go through. And how big is this?
It's small, maybe 5 by 7, maybe.
Okay. So here's,
Small.
you know, see, I'm finding lots of things for you to do. So take this very same thing and maybe play with the color, play with the contrast, you know, make some of the areas darker, let some of the areas be even lighter, and do like 2 or 3 versions of it and see where you go with it. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
You open to doing that?
I feel like starting a new body.
Well, okay.
I want to do another back. I'll do another one. But
Okay.
the face, you want me to darken and tone the left
Yeah,
part of the
left
face.
side of it. Yeah, the left
The
side.
left side.
Yeah, the side plane of the face and the hair.
Side plane.
Yeah. But like, okay, so if this were like one back, right?
Yes.
Then what I would say is you can have these colors in there, but make them closer in value, right? So that all of the back is kind of a similar, it can be different colors, but just, you know, keep the values about the same. And
I
then,
think I'm going to do another. I'm going to do some other modern ladies' backs
okay,
with watercolor.
all right, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I want you to try to work with this because you've got something, you know, that's, you know, you've got a nice start here. I want to see you develop it. But if you're thinking of this as the back of a female figure,
Right.
and again, you know, keep all the values on the figure closer together,
Oh,
and then change the value outside of her to be either darker or lighter. Okay. Now,
okay.
real quick, I've got 2 more pieces. This is Rebecca Pickney. And so she started doing it looks like a pencil and maybe a watercolor of that flower. And Surin sent this piece in, which, Surin, I wanted to talk a minute about this. Not that we have a minute, but, you know, this painting's working really well, okay? You've got nice depth in here. You know, the figure really pulls forward, you know. I think the way that you resolved everything in this painting, you know, is worked out pretty well. I particularly like the way that you've laid in, you know, the lavender and kind of the movement, you know, of the plants, because, you know, they're continuously sort of changing direction and shifting. And that's, it's got a nice feel to it. So good job on that one. Can you hear me?
She's not here.
Oh, no, he's here. I can see him, but I can't hear him. All right. Anyhow, so we will be back here on Wednesday. Remember, Sabrina sent you guys an email. Respond to that. She's going to
I
send.
didn't get the survey.
Well, you have Sabrina's email address. Send her an email saying, I didn't get the survey, and
Okay.
she'll send you one, okay? She hasn't sent out the surveys yet, but she did send out an email asking you guys to respond to it so that she knew that